Yo, this deck is absolutely crazy. We have two amazing Beedrills here, both of which are able to instantly knock out your opponent in just one hit, and of course that is exactly what we look for when we build our decks. So be sure to stick around for the deck profile and the matches afterwards, as we have some pretty great ones, and of course if you're new here, be sure to subscribe and leave a comment with your thoughts on the deck. Here is the crazy new Beedrill deck that we've got going on now. I'm sure you've seen a couple of variations of this, but this is my one and it is super fun to play. So let's get right into the nitty gritty of the new cards here. The new card that we got is the Single Strike Beedrill, which does have this attack for 1 grass energy. Persist Sting makes it so that if your opponent's active Pokemon has any special energy attached to it, it is instantly knocked out. This is great because instant knockout, I mean, there's no downside to that, so the only downside is that you are a stage 2 Pokemon, and I suppose technically the downside as well is that you have to have special energy on your opponent's active Pokemon. So against decks where they don't play any special energy, we do also have an answer for that with this other Beedrill, which we did get quite a while ago, but it also has this Destiny Stinger attack for, again, 1 grass energy. You can use this attack if this Beedrill has damage counters on it, then both active Pokemon are knocked out. This is great because you're only going to be giving up 1 prize card to your opponent, but you can use this in situations where your opponent has a tag team, a vmax, even just a regular V Pokemon, then you will receive 2 or even 3 prize cards, which is very fair because you're going to be getting more prize cards than your opponent. As you can see, we have a split of 2 of each of those Beedrill, and then I'm also playing this Weedle here. If you do have a preference with Weedles, then I go for this one with Call for Family, since you can then set your deck for some more Pokemon. And I'm also playing a Snorlax engine here. As you can see, we have the Snorlax with Gormadize. You use this in the early game so that you can fill your hand up and have that good consistency. And we also have a couple of Pokédoll, just for when your Snorlax gets up. If you're not quite ready to use a Beedrill, you can throw a Pokédoll in there. And then the other new card that we got from Chilling Reign is this new Stadium card, Old Cemetery, which makes it so that you get 2 damage counters on whatever Pokemon you attach an energy to, as long as it's just any energy other than Psychic. If it's Psychic, it doesn't work, but we're a grass deck, so this applies to us. And this is how we're going to get damage counters onto our Beedrill in order to get those instant knockouts. So we have a few copies of those, also a copy of Turffield, just in case in the early game we can use this to get our Beedrills into play and then use the rare candies to evolve into them. And everything else you can see is pretty much self-explanatory to get consistency up as high as possible. We have 4 Professor Research, 4 Bruno to get our draws after our knockouts from our opponent if they start taking knockouts on our Snorlax, that sort of thing. We also have Boss's Orders to bring up a threat that my opponent might be building it in the bench, as well as some captures for the early game, like I said, just building that consistency up. And the other thing of note might be, say, the Marshadow, which I do think is an important inclusion since we are quite heavily relying on those stadiums. So this Marshadow will be able to remove any chaotic swell that your opponent might be playing, but even just in general, removing a stadium could be useful for you. So like I said, super fun deck. You're able to get instant knockouts, which is the goal of this deck, so that you can always win that prize race. So let's get into the matches, see how we get on, and I'll show off just how powerful this deck really is. We're starting off this one with the Weedle here, and we are up against an Arceus Dialga Palkia GX deck with the new birds from Chilling Reign, so this is going to be an interesting game, but certainly we are favoured if we're able to get set up nice and effectively here. We do have the Turffield Stadium as well as the Old Cemetery Stadium that we can make use of. So we'll have to see if we can get that going. We do really need a couple of more Pokemon here though. That's going to be the main thing. So as long as we can get our Beedrill into play fairly quickly, we should be able to win this one. Let's see if my opponent has anything else that they wish to do. They are going to be retreating, and going for the Intrepid Sword to draw 3 cards and end off their turn. They do hit the Metal Energy there, and let's see what we get off the top. Just another Pokemon Communication. Now, I am tempted to try and be kind of slow, but I think we are going to have to play it to try and get some more Pokemon into play here. We'll take the Kakuna and transform that into another Pokemon with the Communication here. I kind of want to get another Weedle, although a Snorlax is definitely an option that we could go with here. We do have most of our Beedrill, which is good to see. And yeah, I think we will just take the Snorlax. We can play out this hand and hopefully find energy on the following turn. So we'll attach here, retreat into the Snorlax. Also going to play down the Turffield, I think, so that we can get an evolution at the very least. And let's see which one we're going to take. Probably just the Kakuna, I think. Makes the most sense here, so we'll take that. And I don't really feel like playing out the Bruno, there's not really much point. I suppose I could put the Kakuna back into the deck just in case my opponent goes for a boss's orders, but there's no way that they're going to be able to attack like that. So I might just hold on to it, to be honest. Sure, I don't know, man. I don't know. We need more Pokemon out, so we'll go for more Pokemon. Why not? Let's grab a second Weedle and also play the Bruno here. Get a couple of extra cards into play, and we get the Kakuna back anyways, along with a Pokédoll. So we can play at this hand, and we're still going to be using Gormandise for a good amount of cards. Hopefully now we just need the energy, and we do get the Stadium as well. So we're in a very good spot here to get a turn 2 knockout on this ADP, and that's really going to even out the game, because of course they're able to take extra prizes with that GX attack. So being able to take 3 prize cards on this ADP is going to be crucial, I would have to say. And they do have the Aurora Energy on here, so we could even use the single strike Beedrill and just knock out this ADP just like that without having to knock out ourselves as well with the other Beedrill, which would be very nice. Of course, we do have the Snorlax stuck in the active spot. That is the only downside, as I kind of would recommend putting in other switching cards. Maybe we should just put in a couple of switches rather than the U-turn boards. Not quite sure on that front. Let's start off with a Turffield Stadium, and I will get out. I think we will get out the other Beedrill just to play some mind games with my opponent. Maybe they don't realise that we have the new one. So we'll evolve into the Kakuna here, Rare Candy into the Beedrill we just grabbed, and I think we'll play down a second Pokédoll as well, just in case we want to use that to switch out. And we'll also attach this Capture Energy somewhere. I mean, this Beedrill takes Grass Energy, but I mean it could use the second tank, I suppose. I think we'll just be attaching it onto, say, the Kakuna, and that's going to allow us to get out another Weedle. I'll hold on to everything else in this hand though, nothing else that we need to get, and we can just Gormandise for 3 cards. Just looking for that energy now. We have the Bruno for when my opponent inevitably knocks us out on this following turn, and everything else that we need is in our hand, ready to go. My opponent going for a Cherish Ball, getting that Dedenne GX, looking to draw some more cards here. That's going to be reasonable for them to really refresh their hand and see what they have to work with. Choosing to discard the Aurora Energy, so perhaps they do realise that our Beedrill is able to instantly knock out anything with special energy, and they just choose to discard that special energy. They do have a second Aurora though in their hand, which is going to allow them to get that Ultimate Ray off, and they're just focusing all of their special energy onto the ADP, and that's going to mean that we have to knock out their other Pokemon with our Beedrill, which knocks itself out. So let's see what we have going on. They're going to take 2 prizes on the Snorlax. Then in this following turn, we're going to take 3 prizes on the ADP. So we should hopefully be able to stay ahead of my opponent and close out this game fairly effectively. They are going to be attaching energy onto a bunch of their different Pokemon, mainly the Zacian though. which is going to allow them to do some big damage if they need it. Now, what do we go in with here? Our Beedrill does need the grass energy in order to attack, so I think we will just promote a Pokédoll for the time being, just in case we don't get the energy. And of course we will be evolving into that Beedrill. We'll also use a Evolution Incense. Start off with that. Unfortunately we don't have any more Kakuna available, and I also don't have a rare candy in my hand, so not going to be super useful there. I think we'll just go with this Quick Ball and discard the Mew. We're not going to be needing that in this matchup. We can just discard it for, I suppose we could take the Oricorio, but if my opponent uses a boss's orders on it, that's going to be bad news for us. So we'll just go for another Weedle perhaps. We already have pretty much all of the Pokemon that we need right here, so Oricorio could actually be the best option here. It's going to be risky if my opponent gets a boss's orders, but it could also be very much worth it. Turf Field is pretty useless, so I'm just going to go and throw our stadium into play and use the Bruno here, looking for a grass energy, and there we do find one, which is excellent. We also get a rare candy, so I think I can Pokemon Communication away this Marshadow. We don't need that right now, and we can grab our other Beedrill. Tempted to evolve into it now, but like I said, they're down a bunch of their special energy, so I might just hold on to it for the time being. And I will use the Oricorio, of course. That would definitely make sense to draw those 3 cards. Nothing too amazing there, so we'll just put our Pokédoll into the deck and promote our single strike Beedrill, which is going to allow us to get an instant knockout here. And that is all we want, so there we go. We're going to basically discard that ADP, and we get to take 3 prize cards on it. There's a Snorlax. Can we get our other Beedrill? That would be very good. Just a Kakuna, not ideal, but we do have our backup Beedrills, so, well, one of them at least. Hopefully we can use that to pick up our secondary Beedrill off of the prizes, because like I said, the single strike one's not going to be any use to us. There's the boss's orders from my opponent, so it's going to allow them to take 3 prize cards on this Oricorio, and then when we do knock ourselves out, my opponent will take a prize card on that Beedrill and ultimately win the game there. So not the best in that situation. I felt like I did have to put down the Oricorio in order to actually find our energy, because there was a chance that we didn't find it off of the Bruno. So I don't really feel bad about putting in the Oricorio, but at the same time, it's situations like this where you just have to bite the bullet and go for it. Nothing else that we really need to play out here. I guess I'll evolve into the Kakuna, but like I said, we're going to be giving our opponent the game here. We go down to 1 prize card remaining, but my opponent also gets to take a prize card, which is going to win them the game. We have no active Pokemon on either of our sides. I have 1 prize card left, and my opponent has none. That's a little unfortunate, but you do have to watch out for that. Hopefully we do a bit better in the next one. Going into this game, we're up against another single strike deck from the looks of things, as my opponent does have the Houndour, and we have a pretty excellent start here, which is very good. I'll definitely want to be attaching an energy right off the bat, and we can also play out some of these cards here that we're not going to be needing right away. We've got the Quick Ball. I think we'll just discard the Bruno, to be honest. Both of these cards do pretty much the same thing at the moment, and we definitely want to grab another Weedle. I could play out the Turf Field now just to get an early search. If my opponent replaces it, then that's fine, as I do get use out of it. And then we're definitely going to Gormandize here for 4 cards, which is a very reasonable start. And we do even get the rare candy for the following turn, which is very nice to see. We'll have to see if my opponent gets any single strike energy down early. If so, then we can go for our single strike Beedrill to instantly knock them out. Otherwise, we're going to have to find our other Beedrill along with the old cemetery in order to get those damage counters on. There's a Pokemon Communication, putting the Houndour back into the deck, And we do see a single strike Urshifu from my opponent, so they're focused on that Urshifu VMAX. They also have a couple of other tricks in the form of the tool card there, and unfortunately we're getting hit with the Marnie, and that's definitely not what I want to see, as they had a really good hand there. But we do get a couple of extra Pokemon here. Going to be losing a rare candy, which always sucks, but we do have the extra Pokemon, which is good overall. And here we go, my opponent is going to be using that first attack on the Urshifu to power itself up and get some fighting energy onto it. Now, looks like they're choosing not to attach any single strike energy, so we are going to be forced to go into our other Beedrill. And yeah, I think we're going to be evolving here. Unfortunately, we're also losing the ordinary rods. That would be really useful to have in the deck, but we're going to have to be aggressive here and discard it. We do get a Beedrill, but no rare candy. And we also don't get the stadium just yet, so I think we'll go for another evolution incense to get ourselves a Weedle. Definitely evolve here. And I'll put down the rest of these cards as well, just so that we can thin the hand as much as possible for Gormandize, and definitely make the most of it. Also get the Oricorio here actually for the following turn. That doesn't seem too bad. And I think we'll just hold off on the rest of this stuff. Could increase our draws by 1 by attaching the energy, but I really want to hold on to it for when we do find that old cemetery, and we do find it right here. So that is great. That's going to allow us to get that instant knockout, or at least a prize trade on the Urshifu, which is exactly what we're trying to do here with the deck. We even get the special energy from my opponent. They also have the boss's orders though to combo with that. I'm fine with it though, since we do have the rare candy and the backup Kakuna. So we're in a very good spot here overall, as my opponent can knock us out, but we're going to be knocking them out as well on this following turn. We see a Dedenne from my opponent. They also got the Houndoom here, so it's going to allow them to start powering up another single strike attacker if they want to. Getting down another Houndour as well as the backup single strike here, the Slowking V. Interesting choice of attacker for sure. Here we see they do go for the attack, getting the knockout, of course. 170 damage, very much more than enough damage. And we can just promote a Pokédoll potentially, but I think we're going to be attacking anyway, so we'll just promote our Kakuna. It's not going to make a huge difference which Pokemon we promote here. And of course, definitely going to be going in with the single strike Beedrill, so that we can get an instant knockout. And we want to be attaching there, and I'll also rare candy this Weedle into the Beedrill. I think we'll also go for the Oricorio, because I don't have a lot of threats here on my opponent's side, so I'm fine to just use this to draw 3 cards, and can even play out a couple of U-turn boards, which is very good. Now it's just time to go for an attack. There's that instant knockout, easy 2 prize cards, and we're now 1 up on my opponent. We do have the stadium cards in play as well, and we pick up the boss's orders, so if my opponent tries to stall for a turn here, we can use that boss's orders to get in there and knock out that Slowking V, which would be a very good advantage on our side, since it does have that single strike energy on there already. They get a Quick Ball, that's going to allow them to get another Pokemon, looking to get another Urshifu here, which is fair enough if they want to use that as a main attacker. Certainly its damage output is a lot higher than the Slowking, and they are going to be using the Houndoom once again, putting that single strike energy onto the Slowking though. Perhaps they have the VMAX in their hand. They're going to be using the Urn to shuffle in 1 single strike energy. And there we go, we see a trainer card from my opponent. We're going to be forced to discard some Pokemon. I think we can happily discard the Snorlax. Oh, it's having a bit of trouble selecting there. The Snorlax and the Pokédoll seems reasonable to me. Could have got rid of the Oricorio there just to eliminate the liability, but this seems fine overall. Not really sure what my opponent hoped to achieve from us discarding our Pokemon on the bench anyway, because we don't really need any of those Pokemon. I mean, we got our use out of Snorlax and we don't need it anymore, but unfortunately my opponent is playing a reset stamp, which is going to hold us back quite a bit now. At least my opponent did shuffle the cards into the deck rather than a Marnie just putting them on the bottom, but certainly our hand is looking a lot worse than what it was. Now, we could go for an attack here with the Beedrill and deal 110 damage, which is not quite enough to knock out the Houndoom. A little unfortunate. We could always retreat into a Snorlax and just draw some cards that way as well, which I kind of like that the most, to be honest. We're not doing a whole lot else here, so we can go for that. And I think we don't have any Ordinary Rod left in the deck either, as far as I'm aware. So I will just be attaching back onto the Beedrill that we just retreated, I think. That seems fine. And let's go ahead and Gormandize. Draw 5 cards here. And like I said, looking for that Stadium. Not finding it, but we do have a bunch of good cards to work with. My opponent draws. They did get a good turn of stall there with that reset stamp. We would have been completely dominating them if they hadn't have done that, as we did have the boss's orders there. Definitely would have been knocking out that Slowking V, but now they have the Urshifu VMAX. They're going to be attaching another tool, and we get hit with another Marnie. Just every kind of disruption from my opponent right here to try and slow us down as much as possible. We draw back into the Stadium. I'm not going to need that right now, as we do have energy on our single strike Beedrill, which is going to be coming in clutch as we have the boss's orders to bring up one of my opponent's Pokemon. As long as they knock out our Snorlax, I'll be totally happy with that, as we can then go in with an attack here. Snorlax really being a bit of a hindrance at some points in the game where you're not able to retreat it very effectively. With that high retreat cost, it can be a little tricky. They do get the second Houndoom here, which is going to allow them to accelerate another energy into play. And it looks like they're putting it onto the active Houndoom. It's going to allow them to potentially get an attack off or just retreat. Either way, they do have a couple of options. Let's see what they go for. They have the retreat, definitely makes sense. And I'm not too bothered about my opponent knocking this out, like I said. They are just going to go for that second attack, which makes it so that we're going to be knocked out, going back into my opponent's turn. And yeah, there's really nothing that I want here. I'm just going to be using the Gormandize and potentially using a Palpad, but I think I might hold off on that as well, just until we can shuffle in the boss's orders. We also have the Pokédoll, but I'm not too fussed about that, so I'd rather just maximize our draws off of Gormandize. So we'll go ahead and discard here, don't want any of those basics, and we'll Gormandize for 4 cards once again. See what we get. My opponent, of course, getting the prize card there on the Snorlax, since we get knocked out at the end of our turn. They're going to also go down to 4 prize cards remaining, but we can easily put up our Pokédoll, which is going to be a thing that they can't take a prize on, which is very important here in stalling or on our end. It goes over to my opponent's turn. Do they have a boss's orders is going to be the main thing that they're looking for. They have filled up their bench. Those 2 Dedenne is going to stop them from drawing any more cards with another Dedenne, and it's going to be more difficult for them to find boss's orders as a result. And they also only have 8 cards left in deck, which is certainly worth noting, as they might just be running low on resources overall. Who knows, they might still have one in there since they have only played one, or alternatively they might have one in the prize cards, which would also be a good help out to us. Trying to use a Houndoom, but they fail it, so either they don't have any left in deck or they just don't want to attach it anywhere. But you gotta imagine if they're going to be using that Houndoom ability, then they would be hoping that they have energy left in the deck. but they do have the boss's orders here to get around our Pokédex. Do they have an attack though to combo with that in order to get a knockout? They do not. They just have the same attack as before, trying to get us to be knocked out at the end of our turn, which is perfectly fine by me. We do have this Beedrill on the bench, but unfortunately it's not the single strike one, so I'm probably just going to be attacking with the single strike. And yeah, I mean, we don't have any energy, otherwise I could have retreated into the Pokédoll. I'm not really sure. I guess the Oricorio is from damage or something like that. Don't get to use that for some reason. But yeah, we're just going to go for the attack here. Don't really see much else in terms of options. Potentially putting down a Snorlax again in case my opponent uses a Marnie or a reset stamp. So go with that and just take the knockout on my opponent. We get 2 prize cards, they only get 1 from this, so I'm happy with that trade and don't mind it whatsoever. We do get an Evolution Incense, which is quite nice. And I will just be promoting the Pokédoll once again. We should have a couple of energy left in the deck, so if we do need to take a knockout with our benched Beedrill, that shouldn't be a problem, as we can get the Stadium in play and then just dig through our deck with the Professors for research here. They do promote the Urshifu, so they're going to be looking to get the energy and attack with that. They do get 1 from the hand, and we do know that they don't have any left in the deck at the moment, so unless they get an Urn of Vitality, they won't be able to use those Houndoom to accelerate energy. And there we go, we do get hit with another Marnie. So we're going to be losing our old cemetery. I do believe we still have a couple in the deck, so we might draw back into it here. It's not going to be, well, no, it is going to be the case. We do have the energy as well, which is exactly what we need. And the rare candy as well with the Brock's Grit. So we should be all good here. Actually, got a little bit ahead of myself. Almost disappointed myself there, but it's all good. We have everything that we need here to get the win. And my opponent is just going to be knocking out this Pokédoll, since they used the Marnie, so they're not able to use a boss's orders this turn. And perhaps they're maybe only playing 2 as well. So we do get the W. We have the old cemetery. We're going to attach energy, which deals the damage, and then we get to knock ourselves out as well as our opponent's active, which gives us 2 prizes. They do get a prize, but that's not going to be enough for them to win the game. Our 2 prizes does win us the game, which is exactly what you want to do with this deck, and exactly how it should work, hopefully, most of the time anyway. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. You've definitely seen the true power of Beedrill here. Doesn't work 100% of the time, but when it does, you're going to be trading prizes very effectively to win games nice and easily, just like that. I'll catch you in the next video.